Good day to all the viewers. Welcome to Banglar Shikha Classroom, an endeavor of Paschim Bongo Samagro Shikha Mission, Department of Education, Government of West Bengal. I am Dr. Ivy Sarkar, Headmistress, Srirampur Girls' High School, Srirampur, Hooghly. Today, I am going to impart the lesson of studies by the famous essayist Francis Bacon for Class 11 Semester 2 examinees. Welcome back, Class 11 Semester 2 examinees. So now we are going to move on with the second part of the lesson of studies by Francis Bacon. So in the first part, we have already learnt about Francis Bacon, how he was a Renaissance thinker, what were his major prose style, and we have done few lines. So we have done all these things. He is known as the father of English essays. He is known as the father of modern prose. He is also known as father of empiricism because his works were based on evidence, logic, and reasoning. So those who haven't yet gone through the first part, I'll tell you, go through the first part and then you can understand the second part clearly as well. So we have done up to line number 10 in the first part of our lesson, and today we'll start from exactly line 10. We'll start 10 to 13 will be our lessons for the first slot. Now, as I told you earlier in my last class, Francis Bacon's style of writing included threefold sentence structures. That means his lines had threefold structures, and each of those parts can be equally used for a proverb or a wise saying. He revolutionized every concept. The concept he dealt with. Means, suppose you have some knowledge or we have some knowledge about learning or studies. But the way Francis Bacon has delineated or wrote about studies in his essays, in his essay of studies, that is going to change our views. That is going to give us food for thought. That is going to make us meditate. That is going to shape our thoughts. Of course, there is a moral lesson. Of course, there is a message to impart. So now let us see another threefold structure. Crafty men condemn studies. So previously he told us the utility of studies, the uses of studies, the drawbacks of studies, and now here in this line he tells us about those men, the different types of men who view studies differently. So in semester 2, you are going to have 2 marks question and 3 and 6 marks questions. So this can be a question. Write about different types of men with different approaches to studies. So here you see crafty men. Crafty means cunning. Those who are cunning, those who are shrewd. They are clever, but they are unprincipled. They condemn studies. Condemn. They consider studies as useless. So the shrewd men, they don't value studies. They are shrewd in a negative way. So they know that, okay, you study and you get a good job and I'll do it by other means. I'll not study. So the crafty men, they condemn study. Okay? They condemn studies. Simple men, they are simple. but they may not have that potential and tenacity to study hard, don't have that perseverance, do not have that capacity, do not have that willingness or that time to devote. But they are simple men and they know the value of studies. So they admire studies. So simple men, what do? They admire studies. So what we have? Craftsmen condemn studies. Simple men admire studies. You see here the picture, craftsmen. So admire. So study is crossed here, book is crossed because they condemn studies. Simple, he's looking at the book, looking at the pages, might not be reading them carefully, reading the lines carefully. They admire study. And see the wise men. And what do the wise men do? Wise men use them. So the wise men, they study properly, they consider the lines carefully, they judge the lines properly with reason, and that gives them the proper knowledge. See the thought. This is giving this wise man, he is one of those wise men, the food for thought. So they use, because they analyze what they read in the book, they analyze. And after analyzing, they think how to apply them, apply those knowledge, apply that knowledge in the practical field for bettering human lives, for bettering his life. So for individual growth, for the growth of the society, for the growth of an organization, so the wise men, whatever they read, they try to apply that knowledge in the practical field. So 3 types of men and their approach to studies. The craftsmen, they condemn studies, consider studies to be useless. Simple men, they admire studies. Wise men, they use studies. Okay, now see these 3 types of men. Craftsmen, they condemn studies, consider them useless, and look down upon studies. They don't value studies. Simple men, they admire studies, look with awe, look with wonder at studies. So they are simple. And the wise men, they use studies. They use study in practical life. So they know the practical use of knowledge, and they know that practical use of knowledge is gained through observation of life. That is something beyond the books. In the practical field, you can gain more knowledge that is superior even from the knowledge that you gain from books. So only book knowledge or only bookish knowledge is not sufficient. We gain much knowledge even from in the practical field. So wise men try to use the knowledge from the books in the practical field. So what is said here? So now here you see, and the next part, for they teach, not their own use. They means the books. They teach, not their own use. So the books, they means here it is written in the annotation, to studies. Teach not their own use, studies themselves. Do not automatically teach us how to use what we have learned. You can read books, but those that studies themselves will not automatically teach us how to use that. We can study and we can have knowledge, but how to use it, that will not be taught. So for they teach not their own use, but that is a wisdom. Without them and above them. Without them means beyond the books. Above them, superior to what is written in the books. So, how to get that knowledge beyond the books and better? And that knowledge can be bettered by observation. by experience in the practical field. So, crafty men condemn studies, simple men admire studies, wise men use them in the practical field because books do not teach how to use the knowledge gained in the practical field. But that is a wisdom that we have to gain and secure by observation and practical experience. This is said here. So now we'll move to the next slide. Now the next line, Bacon's famous triad, this threefold structure sentences, we have been reading this and now we are Bacon's famous triad. We have been reading the threefold structure or threefold sentences of Bacon. So the next line, lines 13 and 14, here what Bacon is telling us, he is warning us what to do and what not to do. He is giving a cautionary sound about the aim and purpose of study. He states clearly, read not to contradict and confute. So when you study, when you read, your purpose should not be that I'll read because I'll have to argue and win over that person. So for the purpose of contradicting somebody, for the purpose of confuting or refusing some statement, don't read. Don't even read to believe or take for granted. Means studies should not give us this perception that whatever I'll read, I'll believe. Oh, it's written in the book page, it's gospel. No. Studies, that is not studies. That may be a reading, but that's not studies. So don't read to contradict, to confute, to quarrel, to argue. Don't even read to believe whatever is written. So, I repeat again, whatever is written, neither will I believe everything, nor will I disregard everything that it's written rubbish. It should not be this. Nor to find, talk and discourse. Don't even read for this purpose, that I'll get some material only for delivering it. This should not also be the purpose of reading or studies. Then why to study? With what purpose should we study? To weigh and consider. This is the purpose, to weigh and consider. This is again, I'm telling you, dear students, a 2 marks question that you might have in your semester 2. What is the purpose of study? To weigh and consider. That means you read each line and after every line you consider, you try to analyze it, analyze that, and with your own thought, sense of logic and reasoning, assimilate that into your mind. Not just it's written and so I'll have to understand that this is the gospel truth. But if you should have a critical mind, you should have a logical mind. So in Bengali we say, no, bujhe bujhe poro. So similar thing, weigh and consider, analyze and read well. So read not to contradict and confute that, oh, what is written is not right. Not to contradict and confute, not to believe or take things for granted, not to find materials for your discourse, but to consider, weigh, judge and properly understand and assimilate that into your mind. This is the purpose of reading or studies. Now let's move to the next slide. So now we'll try to understand the concept contained in lines 15 to 21. See, this is a snapshot from your textbook. And now we'll do from lines 15 to 21. Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed. From there, by deputy important arguments are still what are flashy things. So up to this. So this part, what is the concept in the portion that I have bracketed? So we will try to understand that concept. You know, here books have been compared to food. Just like food, we taste some food, we swallow some food or drink, and then we chew and then properly digest some food. So here books and studies, books, they have been compared to food items or foods. Previously we had a simile where our natural talents were compared to natural plants. So now we have this food imagery and this food analogy. Analogy means comparison. So what is said? Some books are to be tested. So Bacon says not that all the books are to be read thoroughly. So when we have a good food, we test a portion of the food to understand how is that book, how is that food item. Similarly, there are many books which can be read in parts. Some books are to be tested. Others are to be swallowed. So others are to be read but quickly, not to consider each and every line deeply, but we can read those books quickly. That is, these are not so important books. Some books are to be tasted, some books are to be swallowed, means read it quickly, swallowed. Others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. Some few, some books are there that you have to, just as we chew properly and take the taste of those delicious and nutritious food items. Similarly, there are some very, very useful books. Those are to be chewed properly. That means each and every line should be understood properly, critically judged. Clearly, that should be understood, that should enter our mind. So we should have a clear, concise understanding with all clarity of those lines contained in those books. So what is said? Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. So that is, some books are to be read in parts and others to be read but not so curiously, and some few to be read thoroughly, wholly, fully, and also with diligence, with proper attention, with meticulous, careful observation, with application of logical sense. So those books are to be read very properly. So some to be read only in parts, others to be read hastily but not so curiously or carefully, but few to be read, those useful books are to be read with proper attention and diligence. Now, the first two types of books, that means the books which should be tasted and which can be swallowed, those two are generally the meaner sort of books, the not so good type of books, not so significant or important types of books. So they may be read by some deputy. That means you can appoint somebody and you can say, okay, you read them, I'll listen. So they may be read by some deputy, or for those books, an extract or summaries may be made and you may just go through the summary. So the books, those are not, that are not so important. You can go through the summaries of those books and you can get that read by somebody else and you can listen to it. But those important books, Those are very important books, which are not meaner sorts of books. That must be read carefully. But the meaner or the low quality or lower graded books, they are just like distilled waters. So what are distilled waters? The summaries that we make from the books of those not so important books. We make summaries. So summaries are like distilled waters. So there is a comparison. So there is a comparison with food, there is a comparison with drink also. Distilled water, it lacks mineral, and that is the reason what happens. Distilled water has no taste rather. So summaries of books are like distilled waters, not left with any taste. So this comparison, how can we elaborate? So there is a simile. Simile means a comparison. So comparison is those distilled the summaries from those books are compared to distilled water. So Bacon compares summaries of books to distilled water. Now, just as distilled water is tasteless and gives no pleasure, so also the summaries are very insipid. They are tasteless, and one does not enjoy reading them. The essence of such books are lost. Because you can understand, if you see a film, if you go to a movie hall and if you see a film, and then you can understand and you can enjoy every moment of it. But if you just hear the summary in a nutshell, if you hear the story from somebody, you will not be able to have that active pleasure or enjoyment. So for good films, we say, no, we should go and watch it. Otherwise, if I listen, I'll lose the charm. Similarly, for lesser important books, summaries may be made, but they are like distilled waters. Just like distilled water is tasteless, gives us no pleasure when we drink that water, similarly, the summaries of those books are insipid, tasteless, and we cannot enjoy because the essence of those books are lost. But for the good books, for the significant and important ones, if we hear the summaries and think that these books are read, then the essence of those books will be lost. The significance will be lost. So we should never skip the good books. Okay. So here also we see the same thing. A summary has been made. Some books are to be tasted. That means read only in parts. Skim lightly for general awareness and broad overview. This provide us the surface knowledge. And the books that are swallowed, they are to be read, may not be so curiously. So we can absorb the main ideas, but we might not go for intensive analysis. But for those important few books which are to be chewed and digested, we should read those books wholly. With all diligence and all attention, we should study them thoroughly. We should reflect deeply. We should apply that knowledge practically. And these will transform our thinking and capabilities. So this is the thought content in the portion bracketed. I have explained every line. So you go through the lines, you will understand. So now let us move to the next slide. Now next, Bacon's triad. So now this slide, in the previous slide we have done till flashy things, which means insipid, tasteless things, just like the distilled water. Now we are going to understand the concept in the next triad of Bacon, triad, T-R-I-A-D, triad of Bacon, the next line, from reading up to this here. Let us understand these lines 21 to 26. What he says here? Reading makes a full man. So a man can be perfect. Man can be man can develop his understanding and intellectual ability. He can build knowledge if he reads. Because reading makes a full man. Your personality can be developed if you read. So reading maketh a full man. Conference. Conference means discussion, taking part in debate. That is going to increase and improve your quick thinking, your alertness, your dialogue skills. That is going to sharpen your mind. If you take part in debate or discussion or conference. And writing. So, and writing an exact man. But some are in the habit of taking down notes and keep things recorded. This makes a perfect man, an exact man, because this is a very concise and correct way of keeping things. So there is less probability that they will have any misrecorded data. They will have authentic data because they are in the habit of taking down the notes and keeping them written. That is the reason Bacon says here, reading makes a full man, maketh a full man. Means he can build his knowledge. But after knowledge, that knowledge can be increased and skill can be developed when that man takes part in debate, discussion, conference. So conference, a ready man, he becomes a ready man, and writing, an exact man. But those who have the habit of taking down notes, they can have the record accurate and correct. Now Bacon, in order to prove this point, he adds very humorously, he blends wit with the fact, and he says that if a man writes little, so we can see even among our students, there are some students who writes little. When a lecture is given, they simply sit and look at the face of the teacher, and they simply seem to be understanding everything without writing down anything. That's not a good habit. So how Bacon puts it very cleverly and humorously, you see, he says, if a man writes little, okay, that means he needs to have a very, very good memory. Yes, great memory he needs to have because he's not writing. So he needs to remember, it is expected that he will be able to remember everything and recall them whenever they are needed for future reference. So if a man writes little, you can write little only if you have a great memory. And if a man confer little, they don't take part in, this also we see, there are some students, they read a lot of books, but they don't take part in debate, they don't talk much. But if a man confer little or engage or take part in conversation, doesn't take part in conversation, then he should have a very ready wit. Should have a ready wit or a present wit. That means what taking part in conversation, what purpose does this serve? If you take part in conversation, if you take part in a speech deliverance, if you take part in debate or speech making or declamation or extempore, what happens? This happens that our confidence is built, our thinking skills are developed, our dialogue and communication skills are developed. So this is a warning, kind of caution by Bacon, that if you don't take part in this speaking skills, then you should have a very alert mind, a present wit, and you should be able to dialogue properly with all the arguments and counter arguments. If you don't have this, then please take part in this conference because that can develop your knowledge. So if a man writes little, then he should have a great memory. He should be able to recall everything he has heard. So if that man is not having that great memory, then please he should write down. If a person doesn't take part in conversation, does not confer well, then he should already be having present wit. So only a person having present wit and dialogue capacity or skills may not take part in conference. But if you do not have sufficient dialogue skills, then do please take part in the conference, debate, declamation. This is what Bacon tries to say. And if he read little, if he doesn't read much, if he read little, then what? If suppose a person is not reading, if you don't read at all, if you read little, then at least you should have that skill or that cleverness to appear that you are very learned, though you are very ignorant. Even if you are ignorant, you should have that capability or that cunningness and that shrewdness to appear to be very learned. So what does Bacon mean? He wants to mean that if you don't read, you will not be knowledgeable. If you don't read, you will not be learned. But still, if you think that I will not read, then you should have that skill to appear to be learned. If you don't take part in conversation, your speaking skills will not improve. But even after knowing this, if you don't take part in conversation, then you should be having a ready wit. If you don't write, your documents will not be perfect. But even then if you don't write, then you should have a great memory, or else you should not afford to make these mistakes. So this is being said, and what is said, that is given here in a nutshell. Okay. So now we'll move to the next slide. I hope you are understanding. Now, this is the slide we are having here. This is from line number 26 to the end of the lesson. We'll start from here, histories. Histories up to the end. What is said here? Here, Bacon has given us the utility or the benefits of learning different subjects. The benefits that, here Bacon has provided the curative benefits of studies. He has tried to say, and he has already showed, that studies have multiple healing effects. It can heal our body, it can cure our body, it can heal our mind, it can heal our mental faculties. So, studies have multiple healing effects. Let us see. What are the physical activities or the physical ailments or sufferings or diseases that may be cured through studies? What Bacon says. So here, Bacon has delineated the values of different subjects. So from histories up to we have content. So different subjects, and what do they teach us? Then here we have like the diseases of the body made. So from here up to this second bracket, the second bracket points out the healing effects of the body. Means how can study help us to heal our body and different ailments or diseases of our body. Third bracket from here we have how can we cure the diseases of our mind, or how can we cure any disturbance of our mind. So this entire piece, in this entire piece, we will know the different subjects and their values. What do they teach us? What are the studies that will help us to heal our physical wounds or physical diseases, and what are those studies that will help us to cure our mental troubles. So the first one, histories make men wise, poets witty, mathematics subtle, natural philosophy deep, moral grave, logic and rhetoric able to contained. So histories make us, now for each and every section you can have a question. Now there can be a question, why do histories make us, study of history make us wise or make men wise? Because history gives us the knowledge and the vast knowledge and the vast experience of men. And so it makes us wise and provides us wisdom. So if we know our history, our heritage, our culture, our tradition, so we will be able to learn from our experience, and that is wisdom. Poets witty. So actually it also refers to the imaginative faculty of our mind. The wit, the mental imaginative faculty. Mathematics subtle, it makes us concentrate. Natural philosophy, that of course physics, chemistry and all those natural philosophies, that makes us deep, provides us a deeper understanding of the subject of life. Moral will make us serious, make us grave, and logic and rhetoric, that will improve our conversation, our speech. And now there is a Latin saying. There is a Latin, abuens studia in mors. So this is a very common question that comes. Abuens studia in mors, what does this phrase mean? This means studies pass into and influence our manners. So whatever we study, accordingly our manners and characteristics will be shaped. I tell my son not to watch any content in the YouTube that is going to have negative effect on him. Actually, we know whatever we study, whatever we see, that is going to pass into our character and shape our manners, shape our characteristic, shape our personality. So this question, abuens studia in mors, what does this phrase mean? You have to say this means studies pass into our nature and influence our manners and shape our personality. And here it is says, nay, there is no stone or impediment, there is no stone, there is no hurdles, there is no obstacle, there is no impediment in the wit, in our mind, but may be wrought out. Wrought means worked. So wrought out, worked by fit studies. So Bacon clearly says that there is no impediment in our mind. There is no impediment, there is no obstacle that cannot be removed without studies, cannot be removed with studies. So for every problem, there is a solution, and that can be achieved through studies. This is what Bacon says. Through suitable studies. Of course, when we are troubled, when we are in depression, you see, we read many stories. Nowadays, we read those stories in the Facebook. We try to read the similar quotations, similar sayings that suits our mentality. And that gives us relief, isn't it? Relieves our mind. But in a deeper and a larger aspect, Bacon says that for every kind of ailment, for every kind of trouble, for every kind of impediment, there is a suitable study that can remove that impediment from our mind. Okay. Now what I said, two more points. One is that what are the physical troubles that may be cured by studies? Okay. Now here he says, like as diseases of the body may have appropriate exercises. Bowling, he talks about bowling. Bowling is good for stone and rinse, for kidney problems. So this is physical activity, bowling. This is good for curing any troubles in our kidneys. Shooting is good for It is an exercise for lungs and breast. So shooting is good for lungs and breast. Gentle walking for the stomach. Riding is good for head. And the like. Similar things. So how many points he has said? 4. Bowling is good for the stone and rinse, that means for kidney. Shooting for lungs and breast. Right? Gentle walking is for stomach. Riding is for the head. So, if a question comes, a question is probable from this section. And now will come, what are the mental disturbances that can be cured through studies? Another point here. If a man's wit be wandering, if a man is unable to concentrate, he loses concentration, he loses focus, his mind always wanders from here to there, then let him study mathematics. For in mathematics, if he loses concentration even for a fraction or even for very few moments, then his solution, he will not be able to appear at the solution, and again he will have to redo. So without perfect concentration, it's difficult to solve mathematics. So if a person has concentration problem, let him study the mathematics. This is what Bacon says. See here, if a man's wit be wandering, let him study mathematics. For in demonstrations, if his wit be called away, never so little, he must begin again. If he loses focus, then he will have to begin again. Okay? Okay. Begin again. So, if his wit be not apt to distinguish or find differences, let him study the schoolmen. So, if a person has difficulty in distinguishing between things, unable to understand the difference between two things, this happens to us even. Sometimes we fail to understand the difference between two things which appear to be similar to us. So, if such is the situation, let that person study the medieval schoolmen. Medieval schoolmen means the philosophers of the medieval period, medieval schoolmen, because they were known as hair splitters. In Bengali we say no, chulchera bishleshok. Similarly, they were hair splitters who could analyze things very well. So, if those men will read those philosophies of those schoolmen, they will be able to distinguish between things and analyze things very properly. So, here it is said, if one cannot distinguish or find differences between things, let him study the schoolmen. That means the medieval philosophers. For they are semini sectors. Semini sectors means, I said, hair splitters. Splitters of hair or hair splitters. If he be not apt to beat over matters. Now this is a third type. Now if one is not sufficiently equipped to refer previous incidents or recall anything for proper argument. Sometimes we say no, chor parale buddhi bade. When we wanted to argue, when you wanted to say things, at that time we did not remember those points. After we lost the game, and then we remembered, oh, I could have said this, I could have said that. But the lawyers, they do this very well. So here Bacon says, if people cannot call up one thing to prove his point, to illustrate his point, they lack logic, they cannot bring proper references, then they should study law cases. Law cases is going to make them alert if they study law cases. So, every defect of the mind, of course, each and every defect of the mind, it is having some or the other solution through studies. I hope you have understood the lesson. Now we'll very quickly see at a glance the questions. So now we are in front of the questions that are probable or the sample questions. You can understand what type of question you might get in your exam. 2 marks question, how does Bacon compare natural abilities to plants? I have explained this in the first part of this lesson. What does the Latin phrase abuum studia in mores mean? It means that studies influence our characters and they shape our manners and personality. So if you actually read the text well, line by line, you should be and will be able to answer any and every question. How does Bacon compare books to food in his essay? That also I have dealt with. That is, some books are to be chewed, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. And the extracts of the books are just like distilled water, isn't it? Okay. Which type of men should read law cases? Just now we have done it. Which type of men? Those who cannot recall points or prove his point in any argument or recall facts, cannot illustrate his point, they should read law cases. Okay. What are the 3 purposes of studies according to Bacon? We have read at the beginning. They serve for delight, for ornament, for ability, you know. What is meant by histories make men wise? So this is also I have discussed. Now another, this one, 6 marks question. These are the long questions that you might have. What are the 3 main reasons Bacon gives for studying and how does he explain each reason? So it is in the first part that I have explained in detail. Establish Bacon as a Renaissance thinker from your observation of studies. Now, Bacon was a Renaissance thinker. He was a Renaissance thinker because what is the spirit of Renaissance? Spirit of Renaissance is knowing humanistic values, judging things through practical observation, logic and reason. So it's a Renaissance spirit that always had a mind of inquiry. So in each and every line of Bacon of studies, we have seen that his Renaissance spirit is evident. So you'll have to understand what are the Renaissance spirit and then you can trace them in of studies. In of studies we find those Renaissance spirit. 3 benefits and 3 drawbacks of studies. You already know 3 benefits. You can write 3 drawbacks. It makes us sloth, excessive study, affectations, using too much of ornamentation, that will make us appear that we are showing off, and uselessness, theoretical knowledge, if it is divorced from the practical practice, then it has no value. So these are 3 drawbacks. And see 3 benefits: history makes men wise, poetry, mathematics, and there are other subjects also. In other ways also you can write, because there are other benefits of studies also. There are many benefits listed here in this essay. And now here we have benefits. Write a note on Bacon's prose style as revealed from his essay of studies. Now this is something very important. Bacon's prose style. You know what is Bacon's prose style? Bacon, this is a sample answer, points are given. Bacon's prose style, you see, he is called the father of English prose. Okay, why? He is called the father of English prose for his clear, compact, forceful writing. This is his style. In Of Studies, he reflects that Renaissance spirit. His lines are full of wisdom, so balanced, with practical insights. Now you can understand these points. His prose is aphoristic. What is aphoristic? These are only hints. You can elaborate them. Aphoristic, they are small sentences, wise sayings. Each and every sentence, each and every part can be a proverb. And he has used many comparisons, similes, metaphors, epigrams, antitheses, very compact. His style is very compact and epigrammatic. It is figurative and analogy based. Analogy means comparison based. He has compared books with food, with drink, with plants and natural talents, all this. Full of antithesis. And didactic in tone, of course, it is didactic. Didactic means gives a moral lesson. Didactic in tone. Language is very lucid and simple language in of studies and full of wisdom. 3-4 sentence structure, I have been telling this. This is called Bacon's famous triad that he has used. And so Bacon's prose style here is very brief, full of aphoristic sentences, full of clarity, depth of thought, and this has made his essays timeless. Each and every line reflects intellectual growth and his moral insight, establishing Bacon as a master of English prose. So from these points, you can frame two answers. Bacon's prose style as well as why is he called father of English prose. So now to conclude, we can highlight and reflect on the timeless wisdom of Bacon's of studies. Timeless wisdom. The wisdom that we have gained today, this is timeless. So study as a tool, wisdom over knowledge, and it's a guide for life. Thank you so much. Have a good day. All the best for your ensuing exam.